There is a man pushing a boulder up a mountain. He reaches the top. The boulder rolls back down. He walks back down after it, reaches it, and pushes again. This repeats without variation, without progress, without any final moment at which the boulder stays up and the work is done. Albert Camus chose this figure, Sisyphus from Greek mythology, to represent the human condition, not as punishment, as description. He looked at a man doing something repetitive, futile in the conventional sense with no guarantee of any lasting result, and he made a claim that startled everyone who read it. He said we must imagine Sisyphus happy, not resigned, not merely coping, happy. This essay is about what Camus actually meant by that, and why getting it wrong costs more than most people realize. The word absurd in Camus' specific usage does not mean strange or ridiculous. It names something more precise, the collision between two things that cannot be reconciled. On one side, human consciousness, which asks constantly and with extraordinary persistence for meaning, for coherence, for a story that explains why things happen and what they add up to. We are meaning-making creatures in a way that seems almost involuntary. We generate narratives constantly, we find patterns, we ask what things are for. On the other side, the universe, which does not answer, which maintains its indifference to the question with a consistency that no amount of asking changes. Not hostility, silence. Not malevolence, simply the absence of any response to the demand for explanation. The absurd is not the universe. It is not the human demand for meaning. It is the gap between the two, the experience of asking and receiving nothing back, the sense of reaching for coherence in a place where coherence is not available. Camus thought this was the most fundamental fact about human existence and the one people were most eager to avoid confronting directly. There are two ways people typically respond to this gap. The first is to eliminate it by deciding that it doesn't exist. You accept a framework, religious, ideological, or philosophical, that provides the meaning the universe doesn't, and you organize your life around that framework as though it were settled. Camus had genuine respect for the people who took this route seriously. He just thought it was, in a specific technical sense, a leap. A choice to believe something that the available evidence doesn't support, made because the alternative was too uncomfortable to inhabit. He called this philosophical suicide, not because it was weak or cowardly, but because it required killing the question rather than living with it open. The second response is to conclude that if there's no ultimate meaning, then nothing matters, and therefore life is not worth the effort. This is the response Camus spent more time arguing against than any other. His own position was a rejection of this reasoning from the beginning. The absence of guaranteed cosmic significance does not logically produce the conclusion that nothing has value. That is a leap in the other direction, from the silence of the universe to the worthlessness of individual experience, that the evidence doesn't support any more than the first leap does. What Camus proposed instead was neither of these. He called it revolt, a word that sounds more combative than he meant it. What he was describing was an orientation, not an action. Specifically, the refusal to turn away from the gap, the willingness to hold both the demand and the silence simultaneously without resolving the tension through either of the two available leaps, and the choice to live fully and with complete engagement in spite of, or perhaps because of, that unresolved tension. This is considerably harder than either of the alternatives. The leap toward meaning offers the comfort of resolution. The leap toward nihilism offers the comfort of not having to try. Revolt offers neither. It requires holding something open that most people find intolerable to hold open. The awareness that the universe will not confirm whether any of this matters, while simultaneously investing fully in the living of it. The word Camus uses alongside revolt is freedom. The person who has genuinely accepted that no external authority is going to validate their choices is also, he argued, genuinely free in a way that neither the believer nor the nihilist is. Free, because the absence of guaranteed meaning is also the absence of guaranteed constraint. If nothing is cosmically required, nothing is cosmically forbidden. You choose from within the situation, for your own reasons, with no permission being sought from anything outside the situation. The absurd is not a conclusion, it's a starting point. If this is useful, subscribe. Camus was not the first person to look at the condition of human existence and find it without guaranteed ultimate purpose. What distinguished him from the nihilists who reached similar observations was what he did next. He looked at his own experience. He looked at the sun off water, at the particular quality of physical sensation, at what it felt like to be alive in a body in the world. And he noticed that these things had a value that didn't require external validation to be real. The warmth of the afternoon didn't need cosmic endorsement to be warm. The quality of a conversation with someone genuinely intelligent didn't require the universe's confirmation that it mattered to be worth having. This is the ground he was working from. Immediate physical present experience, which produces its own testimony about value independently of any larger framework. Not eternal significance, present reality. Not what this moment will mean in 100 years, what it is right now. He was making an empirical claim, in a way, that the evidence of experience itself, examined honestly, produces information about what is worth having. That you don't need to resolve the metaphysical question to access this information, that the question and the experience can coexist. The idea of revolt, extended across a life, looks nothing like what the word suggests. It is not heroic posturing. It is not declaring war on anything. It is a quiet, daily, often unremarkable choice to engage fully with what is in front of you, to bring the whole of yourself to the work, the conversation, the mourning, the difficulty, without the assurance that any of this is building toward a guaranteed conclusion. This is what Camus saw in Sisyphus. Not a man who had found a way to make the boulder stay at the top, not a man who had concluded that the boulder didn't exist or that rolling it up was secretly meaningful in ways he hadn't yet recognized, or that the futility didn't matter because death would make it all worthwhile. A man who looked at his situation clearly, fully understood the repeating nature of it, the absence of progress in the conventional sense, the certainty that the boulder would roll back down, and engaged with the pushing anyway, with his full self, not despite the absurdity inside it. The happiness Camus attributed to him was not contentment. It was the particular quality of being fully present to one's own life, even a difficult, even an unrewarded one, rather than being somewhere else mentally, waiting for a version of the situation that would finally be worth engaging with fully. There is a specific version of this that deserves attention because it's the one most people encounter in ordinary life rather than in mythology. Not the grand meaninglessness of the cosmos, the smaller, closer version, the uncertainty about whether what you are doing right now matters, whether the relationship you've invested in is the right one, whether the career you've built is the right one, whether the choices that have accumulated into your particular life were the right ones, and whether the ones you're making now are. Most people respond to this uncertainty in one of the two ways Camus described. They reach for reassurance from people they trust, from external markers of success, from confirmation that they're on the right track, or they disengage, hedge, hold something back, decline to fully invest in anything because the investment might turn out to have been misplaced. Revolt, in this more ordinary context, is a third option. Full engagement with exactly the situation you're in, made from within the uncertainty rather than waiting for the uncertainty to resolve. Choosing the relationship, the work, the direction, not because you've received confirmation that it's definitely right, but because you've chosen it, and you've chosen it with your whole self, and that choosing is itself what makes it real, rather than waiting for external confirmation to make it real. Camus died at 46 in a car accident with an unused train ticket in his pocket. The accident was, by all accounts, meaningless in the conventional sense. No reason, no lesson, no narrative coherence to its timing. He knew, because he had spent his entire intellectual life knowing it, that this was always possible. That the universe was not keeping track of whether his work was finished, whether his ideas had reached enough people, whether the timing was right. That there was no guarantee of the time required to do what he was trying to do. He chose to write anyway, to engage anyway, to live with the same quality of attention to the moment that he was arguing for in his work. This is not an argument that attitude determines outcome. It isn't. The universe doesn't reward engagement by providing the time needed to complete what was started. Camus is evidence of that. What engagement produces is not outcome guarantee. It is a different quality of whatever time there is. The difference between time that is genuinely inhabited and time that is held at a distance while waiting for better conditions. The practical question, which Camus engaged with seriously even if he's often read as purely philosophical, is what this actually looks like, lived. It doesn't look like permanently elevated intensity. It doesn't look like performing enthusiasm for activities that are difficult. It doesn't look like ignoring suffering or difficulty or pretending that things are fine when they're not. It looks like honesty about the actual situation, including the difficult parts, combined with full engagement with that actual situation, rather than a more idealized version of it that doesn't yet exist. The relationship as it is, not the relationship as it might be if the other person were different. The work as it currently is, with its genuine limitations and uncertainties, not the version that would be worth doing if the conditions were different. This is harder than either the optimist's position or the pessimist's position because it requires engaging with reality as it actually is, rather than as you wish it were, or fear it might be. Most people would rather inhabit a story, whether a hopeful one or a despairing one, than engage with the complicated, uncertain, genuinely present situation in front of them. Revolt is the refusal to do that. The insistence on looking at what is actually here and engaging with it fully, without the intermediary of a story that makes it more or less than it is. There's something in Camus' work about other people that tends to be underemphasized in discussions focused on the existential and the philosophical. He was not describing an individual practice undertaken in isolation. The revolt against meaninglessness, as he understood it, was not a private achievement. It was something that happened in encounter, between people, in relationships, in the mutual recognition of shared condition. He thought the awareness that everyone was in the same situation, facing the same silence, making the same attempt to live fully inside uncertainty, asking questions that would not be answered, was the foundation for a kind of solidarity that wasn't sentimental and wasn't based on shared belief. It was based on shared condition. The person across from you is also pushing a boulder. That fact, clearly seen, changes how you relate to them. This is why Camus' ethics, unlike some readings of his existentialism, were not relativist. He thought the shared humanity of everyone in the same situation created genuine obligations, not because a cosmic ledger required them, but because the recognition of shared condition was itself sufficient ground for care. The revolt against absurdity in his reading was not a withdrawal into individual stoicism. It was an opening toward genuine encounter with others, made possible precisely by the absence of the usual justifications for such encounter. There is a difference between accepting that life has no guaranteed meaning and concluding that individual things therefore have no value. Camus made this distinction repeatedly and clearly because it's the one most frequently missed. The silence of the universe on the question of ultimate purpose does not mean that a particular afternoon has no quality, that a particular conversation produces no genuine understanding, that a particular piece of work contains nothing worth making. These things have the value they have. That value doesn't require external endorsement to be real. The experience of them is the endorsement. This is not a consolation prize for people who couldn't find cosmic meaning. It's a reorientation of where to look for value, not up and out, towards something that would validate experience from above, but directly into experience itself, which generates its own testimony about what is worth having. Sisyphus at the top of the mountain, having just pushed the boulder before it rolls back. That moment is real. It has the quality it has. The fact that the boulder will roll back doesn't retroactively alter what the moment at the top contains. This is what Camus meant by imagining him happy. Not that the repetition is secretly fine, that the moment at the top genuinely inhabited is complete in itself, and that this is always available, in every moment, in every situation, including the difficult ones, including the ones that produce no progress in the conventional sense. The fullness of living does not require resolution of the large questions. It requires presence to the small ones, the immediate, the actual, the specific quality of what is here right now. That is always enough to begin with. There's a specific version of the absurd that appears in long-term relationships, and it's worth examining because it's often the most painful encounter most people have with this territory without recognizing it as such. You love someone, you commit to them, you build a life with them over years or decades, and at some point, you notice that there is no guarantee this was the right choice, not because something went wrong, but because guarantee is not a feature of this kind of decision. You could not have known with certainty that this was the person. You cannot know with certainty now. The certainty you feel is not the same as certainty that is actually available. Most people respond to this realization with anxiety, reaching for evidence that the choice was right, cataloging reasons the relationship is good, looking for external confirmation that this was the right person. Or they disengage slightly, hold something back, keep a small portion of themselves uninvested as insurance against the possibility of having been wrong. The absurd position, Camus' position, is something different. It's full investment made inside the uncertainty rather than waiting for the uncertainty to resolve. Not because you've concluded the choice was certainly correct, because you've made it with your whole self, and because that choosing is what makes it yours, rather than something that happened to you while you were waiting for confirmation. The quality of a long relationship is determined not by whether the choice was provably right, but by whether both people kept choosing each other, fully inside the ongoing uncertainty of not being able to prove it from outside the relationship itself. The absurd, in this context, is not a burden. It's the actual condition under which genuine love occurs. There's a related but distinct version that appears in creative work, and it produces a specific kind of paralysis that's worth naming directly. The person who won't finish the work because finishing means it will be judged. The person who won't share what they've made because sharing means others will have opinions. The person who works on something indefinitely, refining and adjusting, never releasing. Partly because release means exposure, but also sometimes because not releasing means the work can still become what you hope it will be, while releasing means accepting that it is only what it is. Camus would recognize this as a version of the leap, an attempt to maintain the possibility of ultimate validation by never letting the thing come to completion where it would have to meet the actual world rather than the imagined one. The revolt, in creative terms, is finishing, releasing, accepting that the thing is what it is, and sending it out to be received however it will be received, without the assurance that the reception will match what you hoped for or confirm that the work was worth making. Making something and releasing it inside the uncertainty of how it will be met is an act of the same quality as Sisyphus pushing the boulder, not because you've concluded the outcome will be fine, but because you've chosen to push regardless. Death is central to Camus' thinking in a way that polite conversations about his work often downplay. He did not think you could fully engage with the question of how to live without engaging with the fact that the living will end. Not as morbidity. He was famously full of vitality and physical joy in his own life, but as a fact that changes the relationship to time and to choice. If life were infinite, deferral would be costless. You could always get to the actual engagement later. You could always wait for better conditions, for more clarity, for the situation to become sufficiently resolved that full investment felt safe. The fact that it is finite changes the calculation, not in the direction of despair, not nothing matters because it ends. In the direction of specificity, this time, these people, this work, this afternoon have a particular quality precisely because they are not unlimited and not guaranteed. The recognition of finitude, genuinely inhabited rather than abstractly acknowledged, tends to clarify choices in ways that nothing else does. People who have encountered mortality directly, either their own or someone close to them, consistently report that it reorganized what seemed important and what seemed like distraction. The reorganization is not complicated. It points with remarkable consistency toward presence and away from deferral, toward what is actually here rather than toward what might be secured or accomplished or proved. Camus didn't think you needed to encounter mortality directly to access this clarity. He thought the honest acknowledgement that it was coming, that the situation was always already this finite, was sufficient. Sufficient to ask the question clearly, sufficient to make the engagement real. There is a failure mode in reading Camus that is common enough to address directly. People who encounter his work sometimes conclude that because nothing is ultimately guaranteed, they are freed from obligation. That the absence of cosmic requirement is a license to do whatever they feel like doing, since nothing matters cosmically anyway. This is precisely the nihilist leap he spent his career arguing against. The absence of external mandate does not produce the freedom to be indifferent to the suffering of others. It produces something more demanding. The recognition that because there is no external authority providing the account, the human beings in the situation are the account. Their experience is where value actually lives, which means their suffering is the only suffering there is, and it matters for exactly that reason. He was explicit about this. Revolt, for him, was always revolt on behalf of something. Not just the individual claiming their right to full engagement, but the refusal to accept conditions that were genuinely harmful to people without a reason being required from outside to justify that refusal. The solidarity he described, rooted in shared condition rather than shared belief, had genuine ethical weight, not because the cosmos required it, because the recognition of shared condition was itself sufficient ground. There's a specific moment in Camus' novel, The Stranger, that many readers remember because it crystallized what he was describing better than any of his philosophical essays. Meursault, facing execution, finally accepts that the universe is indifferent to whether he lives or dies. He feels no cosmic comfort, no sense that his life will have been part of a larger plan. Just the sky above him, the night air, the particular quality of the world as it is, and in that recognition, in the genuine acceptance of the indifference rather than the ongoing refusal to accept it, something releases, not happiness in the conventional sense, but something Camus called openness, a quality of receptivity to what is actually present that was not available while he was still reaching for a version of the universe that would confirm his significance. The absurd, genuinely accepted rather than managed around, doesn't close life down. It opens it. Not to what was hoped for, to what is actually there, which is considerable, and which the ongoing search for guarantee was preventing from being fully registered. Here's what all of this means practically, stripped of the philosophical framework. Full engagement with people, with work, with the morning, with difficult conversations, with uncertainty, doesn't require the question of ultimate meaning to be resolved first. The question might never be resolved. Waiting for it to be resolved before investing fully is not a strategy for how to live. It's a description of how not to. The conditions for genuine engagement are always already present. Not ideal conditions, actual conditions. What is here, imperfect and unresolved and uncertain, is sufficient to engage with fully. The engagement doesn't require the certainty, it only requires the choice to make it. Sisyphus at the bottom of the mountain, having watched the boulder roll back down again, chooses to pick it up and push again. Not because he's found a reason the universe would endorse, because he has chosen to push, and the choosing is his, and he is going to do it with his whole self. That is the absurd life. Not the life that has resolved the question. The life that has accepted that the question doesn't resolve and has stopped waiting for it to. The boulder will roll back. You will push again. What you do with the pushing is the whole thing. There's a particular kind of courage that this orientation requires that doesn't get named directly enough. Not the courage of the dramatic gesture, not the courage of the person who makes a grand renunciation or takes a spectacular risk. The quieter, more sustained courage of engaging fully with what is actually present, including the uncertainty about whether it matters, including the possibility that the effort will not produce what was hoped for, including the knowledge that the boulder will roll back, without flinching away from any of that into a story that makes it less complicated than it is. This is the courage of the surgeon who performs the same surgery for the 300th time with the same quality of attention they brought to the first. The courage of the parent who shows up again for the ordinary Tuesday, without the charge of novelty or the clarity of crisis, to make the showing up feel significant. The courage of the writer who sits down to the page again after the previous session produced nothing that worked and sits there without knowing whether this session will be different. These acts don't look like courage from the outside. They look like routine, but the routine, sustained inside the uncertainty about whether it's the right routine, whether it's building toward anything, whether it will be recognized or rewarded, that's the daily practice of the absurd life. And it requires exactly the capacity Camus was describing. There is one more thing Camus said toward the end of the myth of Sisyphus that tends to be forgotten in discussions that focus on the dramatic, central claim. He said that all of this is already understood, that the understanding isn't the achievement, that you can read every word of what he wrote and agree with all of it, and still spend your morning somewhere else mentally waiting for the conditions to improve before engaging fully. Understanding the absurd does not automatically produce revolt. It produces the possibility of revolt for the person who chooses to act on what they understand rather than filing the understanding alongside everything else they know without living. This is, he thought, the actual challenge. Not intellectual, not philosophical, practical. The person who has understood what he was describing still has to choose again the next morning. Still has to push the boulder even knowing it will roll back. The understanding doesn't do the pushing, the person does. Which means the question is not whether you've understood this well enough. The question is what you do tomorrow morning when the boulder is at the bottom and the mountain is in front of you and there is no guarantee and there never will be. You know what the answer he was suggesting is? One more thing, because it's honest and because Camus would have said it. The absurd life is not always pleasant. It is not always rewarding in any obvious sense. The revolt he was describing is not a guarantee of joy, of satisfaction, of the sense that things are working out. It's possible to engage fully with your actual situation, with all of yourself, without the results being what you hope for. The engagement doesn't change the outcome. The universe remains silent on the question of whether your effort was worth it. What the engagement changes is the quality of your relationship to your own experience. The difference between a life that was genuinely inhabited and one that was spent in the lobby waiting for admission to the life that would begin once circumstances improved. This is not a small difference. It may be the most significant difference available within any given set of circumstances, but it is not a promise. The engaging fully doesn't produce a reward that the holding back would have forfeited. It produces a different quality of whatever time you have, more present, more real, more actually yours. Whether that is worth doing is itself a choice that each person makes for themselves inside their own situation, without external confirmation, that it's the right choice.
That's the point.
That's always been the point. The choosing is what you have. It is enough to choose from. Here is something that gets lost when Camus' work is discussed primarily in academic or philosophical terms. He was also writing about joy, not despite the absurd. Inside it. He described his own experience of swimming in the Mediterranean, of the particular quality of afternoon light on the water, of physical sensation as something that had its own testimony about what was worth having. He wasn't performing gratitude, he was reporting data. The experience of being alive in a body in the world generates information about value that doesn't require a larger framework to be real. This is different from the wellness industry's version of gratitude, which tends to require an appreciative posture toward your circumstances as a kind of discipline. What Camus was describing was more like accurate perception, noticing what is actually present rather than passing through it on the way to somewhere else. The afternoon has the quality it has. The conversation has the weight it has. The work, done with full attention, produces the engagement it produces. None of this requires endorsement from outside to be what it is. The revolt he was describing is not grim. It is not stoic perseverance through meaninglessness. It is the quality of being fully present to one's own experience, which is, he thought, both the consequence of genuinely accepting the absurd and the evidence that accepting it is worthwhile. People who have arrived at this, who have stopped demanding that the universe validate their experience before they allow themselves to have it, describe something that sounds surprisingly like what most people mean when they say they want to be happy. Not the conditional version, the version that waits for the right circumstances. The unconditional version, which is available inside any circumstances, including the difficult ones. That is what he saw in Sisyphus. Not resignation to a bad situation, genuine inhabiting of his own life, which was the only life there was. Which is all any of us have, which turns out to be enough. For the comments, where in your life are you waiting for something to be resolved before you engage with it fully? Name it specifically. The noticing is the beginning. I'll see you in the next one.